These, again, are people who work on the Strip within 2.5 miles of the Bellagio, largely people of color. Of those, the majority are Latino, and they are clearly, at least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders.
Now it is the Sanders people, and I think that the rest of us that sort of look at politics have underestimated the sheer unadulterated rage, the anger of working class people, especially young people who are living with 3 roommates and have a Lyft job and an Uber job, and they can't make it. No one else is as hungry, angry, enraged, and determined as Sanders voters. Democrats need to sober up and figure out what the hell they're going to do about that.
I'm wondering whether the Democratic moderates want Bernie Sanders to be president. I mean, that's maybe too exciting a question to raise. They don't like Trump at all. Do they want Bernie Sanders to take over the Democratic Party in perpetuity?
Well,
I mean, he takes it over. He sets the direction for the future of the party. Maybe they'd rather wait 4 years and put in a Democrat that they like.
It's the faithless logician, dropping what's been missing. Coming for the jugular, but not let me catch you slipping. No tool needed other than my mind to dissect these delusions and correct them in real time. The slayer of dogma and baseless assertions don't come with that weak shit or you'll soon need a surgeon. But it's too late for your argument. It's been torn and shred. There is no coming back. It is completely dead. All I need is my brain and my pen to use as I see fit to flay and or mend these inexcusable policies that are impossible to defend. All I need is my brain and my pen. No trust needed, just take a second and listen as I redirect and clear your clouded attention to focus on the facts, evidence, and testable predictions, painting a picture to help explain these insights, hypotheses, and suspect claims, giving you the tools needed to separate the truth from the false and the utterly inane. The marks are legion and too many to name, but they all love money, bathing in it with no shame, while the rest of us fight over their scraps, struggling just to maintain. They've never read a war that they would not fund, yet they treat citizens asking for health care as low-life scum. But we're done asking, so get ready, because here the we come. With the very decisive victory in Nevada, Bernie Sanders has become the only candidate, Republican or Democrat, to win the popular vote in each of the first 3 primaries in history and is quickly closing in on Biden in South Carolina. This victory was also a great chance to dispel the concocted and completely baseless notion that Bernie is only backed by aggressive, straight, white, so-called Obama boys. No, wait, that was the smear from 2008. Since 2016, it's been the dastardly juvenile Bernie bros who do nothing but cause trouble on the internet, tweeting insensitive snake emoji-filled tirades to terrorize and sabotage serious candidates and their more civilized supporters. The truth is, the Sanders campaign has the youngest, most diverse coalition of supporters in the race, which it used to great effect to gain a dominating win in the desert, with 30% of the black vote and 45% of the Hispanic vote, greatly outpacing his opponents. Sanders was also able to tap into the largest voting bloc in the country, non-voters, by so far turning out 60% more primary voters than in 2016. And though Biden still has a commanding lead with the black vote in South Carolina, like I said, the tide seems to be turning in Sanders' favor. And it's not just South Carolina. Sanders is leading in 3 key swing states that swung right last go-round, with commanding 16 and 9-point leads in Wisconsin and Michigan, respectively, while maintaining a 5-point lead in pivotal Pennsylvania. But not only that, Sanders is the only Democrat to hold a lead against Trump in both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, which has the establishment virtually shitting themselves on air.
I'm reading last night about the fall of France in the summer of 1940, and the General Renault calls up Churchill and says, "It's over." And Churchill said, "How can it be? You got the greatest army in Europe. How can it be over?" He said, "It's over." So I had that suppressed feeling. I can't be as wild as Carville, but he is damn smart, and I think he's damn right on this one.
Ignoring Chris's insensitive, hyperbolic language that he has since apologized for, this clip does a great job of illuminating the mindset of the establishment, which both Chris and his wife Kathleen, who is closely connected to the Clintons, are a part of. The reality is finally beginning to set in. It's undeniable now. Bernie Sanders is the frontrunner. As to why this is so devastating, the establishment will tell you it's because Bernie and his radical socialist agenda can never
win. But the facts just don't back that argument up. Not only is Bernie leading in key swing states which went for Trump last election cycle, such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, but Bernard consistently trumps the Donald in poll after poll by the largest margin of any candidate. And I would argue Trump won the 2016 election in part by running to the left of Clinton on many issues, not in spite of it. Then there's the almighty money game, where Bernie is blowing away the competition despite being the only candidate without any billionaire backing them. And sorry, Boomer, but socialism just isn't the boogeyman it once was, especially among the younger generations, much to the dismay and hard work of the establishment. But we're not even talking about full-blown socialism, which is where the public sector owns the means of production in everything that is produced, as opposed to private enterprise. Now, labels can get messy, especially considering that most people don't actually know the full definitions and histories behind them. But Bernie Sanders champions what are broadly known as social democratic policies. Even though AOC, Sanders, and others call themselves democratic socialists, which are to the left of a social democracy and is considered a post-capitalistic economic system, their policy prescriptions prove otherwise, suggesting they're more in favor of a mixed economic system such as many Scandinavian countries, also known as the Nordic model. The United States is a mixed economy as well, though it's mostly capitalistic with a few socialist exceptions such as the military, the police force, fire department, and so on. Sanders is simply seeking to extend that umbrella to cover a few more of life's necessities, such as healthcare and higher education. And regardless of labels, it's the policies that are most important. And Bernie's popular progressive platform seeks to pick up where FDR left off and catch us up to the rest of the developed world. Radical, I know.
Senator Sanders, in our latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll released yesterday, 2/3 of all voters said they were uncomfortable with a socialist candidate for president. What do you say to those voters, sir?
What was the result of that poll? Who was winning?
The question's to you.
Well, the question was that I was winning, and I think by a fairly comfortable margin. Might mention that. But here is the point. Let's talk about democratic socialism, not communism, Mr. Bloomberg. That's a cheap shot. Let's talk about democratic. Let's talk about what goes on in countries like Denmark, where Pete correctly pointed out they have a much higher quality of life in many respects than we do. What are we talking about? We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now. Problem is, as Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we have socialism for the very rich, rugged individualism for the poor.
Wait a second.
Let me finish. When Donald Trump gets $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury condominiums, that's socialism for the rich. When Walmart, we have to subsidize Walmart's workers who are on Medicaid and food stamps because the wealthiest family in America pays starvation wages. That's socialism for the rich. I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
Senator, thank you. Mayor
Creating
Bloomberg,
a
would you like
government that works for all.
As Sanders alludes to at the top of that clip, when it comes to polling, it's all in how the question is posed. So when a conglomerate such as NBC does polling on socialism or on one of its socialistic programs such as Medicare for All, they will ask it in the most draconian, scary-sounding way possible in hopes of getting the results they are fishing for. But their little tricks aren't working like they used to. Even after asking Nevada Democrats, which include many union workers apparently going against the will of their representatives, how they felt about abolishing all private health care insurance and replacing it with a government-run plan for everyone, insinuating that if they were lucky enough to have one, they would lose their current gold-plated health care plan. As if a single-payer system isn't the most efficient, effective system which the majority of the world already enjoys. According to the latest numbers comparing 149 countries on their healthcare infrastructure, its availability, and the general well-being of its people, the U.S. did not fare so well, coming in a sluggish 38th which is probably why a clear majority were still in favor of the nefariously worded program, which mirrors similar polls taken in Iowa and New Hampshire. Healthcare is this Democratic primary's #1 issue, and with good reason. Americans receive what is routinely ridiculed as the worst healthcare in the developed world, despite paying way more than any other country. Bernie's Medicare for All plan will save anywhere from $2 trillion, according to the conservative Koch brothers funded study, which set out and failed to showcase how burdensome such an ambitious policy would be, to $5.1 trillion over the next 10 years, according to the Political Economy Research Institute. Our current ferocious for-profit healthcare system costs close to $3.6 trillion per year. But once you take out the mafia middleman, aka the insurance companies, and start actually negotiating for better drug prices, which unbelievably we currently do not do. That's right, the United States is the only country to not negotiate for lower drug costs, letting the pharmaceutical companies set whatever prices they would like. By ending this asinine practice, you're able to get down to the 2.93 number that the study cites. You can then deduct the tax funds already allocated to programs such as Medicare and Medicaid and other healthcare costs, which will leave you with roughly $1 trillion left in costs. And yes, Bernie does propose a tax increase to pay for the remainder, though I believe it could be done simply by checking under the couch cushions of the Pentagon. The tax will mainly affect the rich, considering that nearly half the workforce makes less than $30,000 a year. The small increase will be peanuts compared to what the average American dishes out now in way of premiums, deductibles, copays, and other out-of-pocket surprises. I cannot emphasize enough how much that would mean to the working poor of this country to have all those parasitic private taxes lifted once and for all. A third study recently published in The Lancet shows that not only is Medicare for All cheaper, saving roughly $450 billion per year, which works out to $2,400 per family, it would prevent more than 68,000 unnecessary deaths each year by actually fully covering the millions of Americans that either go uninsured or are currently receiving inadequate care, while the establishment's candidates and their so-called serious plans would actually increase cost. But facts don't matter much to the establishment, who only seek to further their control and influence. So now that Bernie is undeniably the frontrunner, expect peak hysteria. The establishment will throw any and everything, no matter how baseless, hoping something will stick. Because, as Chris Matthews lets slip at the top of this video, the establishment would much rather have 4 more years of Trump than upset their cozy status quo. As Bernie brought up in the debate clip, we already have socialism for the rich, in the way of bailouts, subsidies, incentives, and of course, tax cuts for the corporate class. And they have no intention of giving any of it back, let alone giving up control without a fight. Which is why we can't let up now. Bernie must win a majority on the first round of voting at the Democratic Convention in Milwaukee to receive the party's nomination. Otherwise, the establishment gets to step in with their superdelegates and handpick the nominee, as I've detailed in earlier videos. But don't take my word for it. Listen to the establishment candidates themselves. Jana.
Every single candidate on stage, with the exception of Bernie Sanders, comes out against democracy.
And I want to ask all of you this simple question. There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention to clinch this nomination. Okay? If that happens, I want all of your opinions on this. Should the person with the most delegates at the end of this primary season be the nominee, even if they are short of a majority? Senator Sanders, I'm going to let you go last here because I know your view on this. So instead, I will start with you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Whatever the rules of the Democratic Party are, they should be followed. And if they have a process, which I believe they do,
I'm trying to do
so
this
that
yes or no to make it fast.
everybody can.
So you want the convention to work its will?
Yes.
Senator Warren.
But a convention working its will means that people have the delegates that are pledged to them, and they keep those delegates until you come to the convention. All of the people.
All righty. Vice President Biden?
Play by the rules.
Yes or no? Leading person with the delegates, should they be the nominee or not?
No, let the process work its way out.
Mayor Buttigieg?
Not necessarily, not to lose.
Senator Klobuchar?
Let the process work.
Senator Sanders?
Well, the process includes 500 superdelegates on the second ballot. So I think that the will of the people should prevail. Yes,
thank you, guys.
The most votes should become the nominee.
5 no's and
To understand how serious what you just saw is, every candidate except Bernie said, no, the person with the most votes should not necessarily win. Excuse you? Wait. Serious question. Why even have an election? Why even have an election? If you're going to say this person got the most votes and we're just going to ignore that and we're going to go with somebody else, why are you even bothering to have an election? There was an article in the Washington Post the other day that everybody was making fun of. It was titled, like, the elites need to be more involved in picking the president. Now you know why they're saying it. Guys, they're already prepping for a contested convention. And everybody on stage except Bernie is like, hey man, those are the rules. They are, by definition, undemocratic and authoritarian, but those are the rules. Okay, so hold on now, wait. All of the yelping and the screaming and the moaning that we all saw on corporate media over the past year, 2 years, 3 years even, of, oh my God, the Russians are gonna sway the election and not gonna allow the votes to be counted right, and oh my God. And in one segment on a debate stage in front of millions of people, all of you say, I don't believe in democracy. I believe in authoritarianism. I believe elites should override the will of the people. That's me. That's what I believe. Biggest story in the country by far. By far. And it's not even being discussed in corporate media. You have to come to a show like this to get it. I told you, they cut out this clip from the final version. I wonder why. They want to bury this. And they want, by the way, if a contestant convention comes, they're going to act like in mainstream media it's the most normal thing in the world. It's like the old saying, the revolution won't be televised. They're not going to televise it. Listen, you have my word. If it gets to a contested convention, I will be in Milwaukee with a megaphone. And I will come out on this show and I will say, if you're a viewer of this show and you value our future, you better get your ass to Milwaukee.